Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Morgan's Pop Talks, breaking down the latest in reality TV and pop culture. And boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to discuss today. Things are popping off in the summer house. Of course, we're going to get to Vanderpump Rules Part 3. The reunion was crazy. We also have 3 lovely guests today. You might have seen the new Peacock hit show Love Undercover. We're going to be talking to Renée, Brittany, and Ariana today, which I'm really excited about. But so let's just check in. Let's have a moment. How we doing? How we feeling? I'm going to be honest. I'm feeling a little weird today, a little wonky today. I don't know. I think it's been raining for like 3 days. If we've learned anything about me in this podcast journey, it's that my mood is 100% dependent on the weather. If it's sunny and blue skies, I'm the happiest girl on earth. I'm skipping through fields of dandelions. If it's raining, I don't leave my house for 7 days. So that's kind of where I am right now. My dog Harley is in the room. So if you hear random licking noises, I promise it's not me as he starts to lick his paws, but he's just so cute. You can't be mad at him. I know what you want to hear about. You want to hear about DJ James Kennedy. In case you missed it, I went to see James Kennedy on Friday before the long weekend. It was amazing. But honestly, it deserves its whole moment in the sun. So, dun 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 dun, breaking news, music. The next pop-off episode is coming to you on Monday, and we are going to be detailing the James Kennedy concert. We're going to talk about Maddie Reese and Joe Bradley. We're going to do our Gulf Wives support group. So it's going to be fun. It's going to get you out of the Monday blues. See, I'm always thinking about you guys. I'm thinking about you. So make sure you tune in Monday for that bonus episode. But let's go ahead and get into the Pop 3. I want to start with Vanderpump Rules. And I'm just going to put it out there. The Pop 3, it's going to be extensive. So view this as a bunch of mini deep dives because there's just so much to discuss and I really had a hard time choosing. But of course, Part 3 of the reunion, I want to start with some extended version tidbits that I found interesting because in case you don't know, the normal version of the episode airs live on Tuesday nights, but then on Peacock, you get the uncensored and extended version the next day. So here are some little tidbits of information that I found interesting. Andy asked Ariana, after seeing Sheena ask you so many times about Tom Sandoval, did it annoy you? And, what did you think about that? What did you think of Sheena constantly asking or saying, I've seen the genuine side of him. I've seen the mask fall. And Sheena actually interrupts and said, it annoyed me. So, can we just have a deep sigh of relief? Sheena has a little bit of self-awareness. Hallelujah. She gets it. The whole entire season, I was screaming Sheena, you can have these feelings because this was a friendship that you were also in for however many years. Ariana is not your audience. And that's what she said. And Ariana was very gracious to her. She said, yes, I was a little bit annoyed, but this is a learning curve. We haven't been through this before. So I was extending grace in that moment. There was also this part, and I'm pretty sure that it was on the extended version, although I thought I saw somebody say that she watched it on Tuesday night, so I don't know. Maybe I dozed off during this part. But Andy asked Tom Schwartz if he thought Katie was the one that got away. And it was a very, I guess I don't want to say telling moment because I don't want to read too much into it, but basically both of them were crying, Katie and Schwartz. And Tom said, no, I don't think that she's the one that got away because I believe that our divorce was the best thing for us. But then he started crying and said that doesn't negate the fact that we were together for 12 years and we share a lot of beautiful memories. And I will always love Katie. I will always have love for Katie. And Katie agreed. I feel like if anything this season, we got such a full circle moment, I think, for Katie and Schwartz where they're finally able to be friends and maybe they are better as friends. And that's probably what kept them together so long was that they did have this deep friendship and, a certain level of respect for each other. But when it came to that in a romantic partnership, it kind of went out the window. Something that was not included in the extended version, which I'm very curious about, was Tom Sandoval's reaction to the last 3 seconds of the episode. I found that to be very odd. They really focused on Ariana's walkout and Lala's monologue, right? But nobody really sat there and said, Tom, why did you say that? Nobody said it. Andy didn't say it. No other person on the cast said it. And I thought, okay, maybe they're having to edit it out because there's too much. But no, it wasn't even on the extended version. It's like he wiped his hands clean of that. And I know that a lot of fans have watched this season and have said, production is really pushing for a Tom Sandoval redemption arc. And they're using people like Lala to do it because Lala is clearly so desperate for a season 12 that she'll do anything that producers tell her to do. We've heard Sheena say on her podcast that production was in their ears all season saying, if you guys, a group of friends, aren't filming together, then you don't have a show. So obviously there were all of these factors at play. But I think their decision to not show Tom responding to that moment at all actually makes it pretty clear that they were trying to have a little redemption arc for him. The last couple of minutes of the episode were riveting. And they did it because Ariana wasn't watching the show in real time. And I know that I've been kind of hard on her about that stance. I think watching the way that she reacted put things into a different perspective for me. Obviously, it was really triggering for her. And I do think that, production, that was a strategic plan. Ariana hasn't watched the season. How are we going to get her to react to this big moment? She's contractually obligated to be here. So we're going to sit down and we're going to show them all of this together. And I did listen to Ariana on Katie and Dana's podcast. And, they kind of said the same thing. They thought it was mean. Katie was like, it was for no other person besides Ariana, which, it was also for Lala and I think for Tom and I think even for Sheena to kind of see that Tom wasn't really being all that genuine with her, but it didn't have anything to do with James or Katie or Brock or Schwartz. And I've seen some back and forth about this online too, where people are like, this is horrible. How can producers treat her like this? This is so wrong. And if you're in Ariana's position, I'm sure that you feel that way. I'm sure you feel like literally they locked me in a room and forced me to watch this and forced me to have this breakdown moment with Tom Sandoval because they got the moment, forced me to have this moment with Tom Sandoval. And she's like, I finally cried. Are you guys happy? And while I understand her frustrations in that, and I certainly understand her point of view, I'm also just wondering, what would the reunion have been without it? So it's just this really weird place to be in as a fan because I really do love Ariana and I have loved her from the beginning. And a lot of people didn't love her from the beginning, but I always did. I thought she was so cool and I just loved her energy and everything about her. And I just feel like, it's hard as a fan because I want to support Ariana because she's been one of my favorites for so long. But as a fan, I also want to watch an interesting show. And so how do you reconcile both of those things? Because let's face it, part 2 of the reunion was not interesting. Part 1 was kind of interesting, but the most interesting part about it was that moment. So it's hard. And I don't know what's right and what's wrong. So you guys can let me know what you think about that. But also, the whole idea that this was completely blindsiding to the entire cast, I also have a hard time believing because the clip of Lala was in the trailer. You get cheated on and all of a sudden you think you're God. That was in the trailer, which was shown months before they sat down and filmed the reunion. So I feel like even though they didn't know explicitly what was going to happen when they walked into the reunion, they had some type of idea. And I know that sometimes they put things in the trailers that they don't end up putting in the season. But we can tell Lala's in the gold dress. That obviously was at the finale party. That obviously was after Ariana walked out. So I feel like for as much as it was surprising, I feel like in the back of their head, they knew it was something to do with that. Watching them watch the montages was super emotional. When Tom says it's good for me and watching Sheena and Lala's face just be like, oh no, the table of cards has officially fallen. And, it's like Ariana clocks him in that moment and she says what she's been saying the entire season. Like, as soon as something does not go Tom's way, look at what he says about her. These are your true, genuine feelings about her. So how can you tell me in 1 second that you want to sit down and say you're sorry and say that I didn't deserve this? And then in the next breath, when things don't go your way, call me lazy and say that I hate everybody here. She says, you proved me exactly right. And she did. So she gets the last laugh. So it's like, even though it was a hard moment for her, she's like winning. She's winning with the audience. She won in that moment at the reunion, I think. And, Ariana says, I wasn't about to have this Miami moment, talking about him and Kristen when he was crying. And then this time it was me. Now, this is wild speculation. But what that tells me is that Tom and Ariana have had conversations about that Miami moment. Conversations that might lead Ariana to think that it wasn't genuine from Tom's side and that it was just for the show. I mean, she might just be saying that, but I have a hard time believing that. I would think that if you were in a relationship with somebody, a long-term relationship with somebody, and you saw that play out on the TV and then you had conversations with them about it, I could see Tom Sandoval saying, oh, it was just for the show. Right? And he's like, I'm an emotional person. I can't act like that. I can't put on the tears. We actually don't. Like, I don't know how good of an actor Tom Sandoval is or isn't. But, he does say sorry to her in that moment. He says he regrets it every day, wears it as a badge of shame. But I just don't know. I think what I took away from this reunion was the use of the word real, right? They use the word real a lot. And Ariana says, the show doesn't thrive when the show isn't real. Me walking away in that situation was what's real. Lala's interpretation of what's real is being forced into these uncomfortable situations and what happens next. So it's like I said, Ariana's version of real is, okay, I don't want to talk to Tom, so I'm not going to. Lala's version of real is, okay, I don't want to talk to Tom, but I'm going to because I have to. And whatever comes next is what comes next. She talks about how much she was questioned with Randall. And it's like, I believed Lala throughout the season when she said that she wasn't comparing the two, but when you get to the reunion and you're still doing it, I'm like, you can't not compare it. I'm talking about Lala. It's like no matter how hard she tries, she always has to bring it back to what happened with her and Randall. And I said it from the get-go. The reason why she was so loud in the last reunion when Scandival happened was because nobody cared about her and Randall. And she was, again, projecting, because now look at the 180 that she's done towards Ariana. It made no sense. And I always told you, I said, Ariana and Lala are not that close. Lala has no business to be screaming and pointing and whatever. The only reason she wants to do it is because the last season was supposed to be about her and Randall, and it ended up not being about her and Randall. I've been trying to tell you guys, I don't know why you don't listen to me more often, but it's also like Lala feels like her job security rests in Ariana's hands, apparently. And she's like, why does she get to dictate how this goes when I never did? And it's like, yes, you did. We've all seen the montages now on Instagram of how many unanswered Randall questions there were in the past 7 years that she was on the show. The whole first 3 years that Lala was there, she would not answer one single question about Randall. So you did get to dictate how this went. You did. I think one moment that really surprised me was Lisa coming to Ariana's defense. I think it was nice to see that. And I think by Ariana's reaction, she also wasn't expecting Lisa to come to her defense. And I think that she really needed it because Ariana did show up. Like, she did. That reunion must have been incredibly difficult. Even coming back for the next season must have been incredibly difficult. And you can't just forget. You can't just erase everything that happens in your mind in that moment. And then Schwartz ends it by saying, and he said this on Jackson Brittany's podcast last week, that Lala referring to this as a job has taken away the authenticity of the show. And it absolutely has. And that's a big problem. And Schwartz tries to reiterate that by saying, it's a job, but we're family. So Schwartz can also see the writing on the wall there, where Lala and her claims are taking away from the authenticity of the show. After the reunion wraps up, we get a lot of footage of Lala and Sheena in the dressing room. And Lala is crying and she's upset. You think I wanted to show up that day when I was getting questioned by Randall? I'm just trying to figure out what day did Ariana not show up at? Like, if she wasn't going to show up to a day, it would have been the season 10 reunion, but she did. And she confronted everything head on. It's like, how many times is Ariana supposed to rehash this in front of cameras? And it's just disappointing how hard Lala is pushing this, because it's one thing to feel your feelings. You're going to feel how you want to feel, but it's another thing to want to control the way somebody else responds and reacts to a traumatizing situation. And your way is not always the best way. And your way was cutting people off that talk to Randall. And don't say it's different because you had a child, because we're all over that reasoning. It's like, if Lala wants to be a producer, be a producer. But Lala does have a real problem, I think, with projecting. And, she's in the dressing room crying and saying it's not fair. Life's not fair. And you're comparing apples to oranges, and it's never going to be the same, and people aren't going to treat it the same. And it's like really just a shame that she went this hard, because what happened to soft Lala? Where'd she go? She's gone with the wind. Fabulous. Anyways, who knows where we go from here? Who knows? Let's move on to Jax Taylor and his mystery woman OnlyFans model that he was seen with over the weekend. So he was seen with this woman. Her name is Paige Woolen on 2 separate occasions. One, a little lunch date, I think, and then also one at Jeremy Maddox's birthday that was at Jax's bar. So who is this woman? Who is this woman? So she created a page called Dudes in the DMs and documented her adventures as she sent direct messages to guys to see whether they were loyal to their partners. She also talked about starting a podcast. She did like an OnlyFans TV show. She did Sheena's podcast during the pandemic. So it's like she's been around. But I don't think it would be a stretch to say that this lady maybe wants a little bit of clout. That's just an assumption, and you know what they say, but Jax is gonna Jax. Every time I saw a picture of Jax with this lady over the weekend, all I could hear was Brittany Cartwright's voice in the back of my head going, everyone, come listen to this, come see this. It just lives in my head rent free. Anyways, it didn't take long for Brittany to respond. She was reposting things to her Instagram story, and she just said, it was a fan who was talking about like, wow, this is how Jax treats Brittany on television. And she said, thank you. And just imagine what I've been going through behind closed doors. So last week on their podcast episode, May 24th, Brittany said she can't even be in the same room with Jax. And she's like, it's up and down. We're good co-parenting because, Cruz is the most important, but he hasn't respected any of her boundaries. That's what she says. And she says, we got to remember, I'm the one that's living elsewhere. And I'm the one that's like, I feel like I'm the one that's taking all of the hard hits, even though I was the one who had to leave. Some people are up in arms about the Valley not getting a reunion. I actually think it's a good thing that the Valley is not getting a reunion. First of all, I think that they should earn their stripes. I don't think anybody should get a reunion after one season. But second of all, I think it actually allows for more room to go into season 2 and to make sure that season 2 is really good. I got to be completely honest with you. I still have my doubts. Like, I think the separation is real. I think the timing of it is still really sus. Like, Brittany and Jax were not on camera on Bravo for 3.5, 4 years. As soon as cameras start rolling, now you want to decide to, talk about potentially getting, like, if it's gotten this bad, going into the show, you had to think like, well, there's a possibility that we're going to get separated and that it will get, aired on national television. Like, that thought had to have crossed your mind. And when the announcement came out, like right before the season started airing. So it's like, okay, you went through all of this during the season. You held on to it while they edited the season together. And then whenever the first episode drops, then you want to tell everybody that you guys are separated. I don't know. It's just sus to me, and it is what it is. And that's how I feel. And I'm not going to change my mind. Okay, last but certainly not least, we have this little Loverboy debacle. And we also got the Summer House reunion trailer. So last week at the end of the week, there was a little feud that broke out between Kyle and Craig. It was Loverboy versus the Spritz Society, which was founded by a guy named Ben Sofer, who's married to Claudia Oshry, who is one of the hosts of The Toast. So what Kyle said on Watch What Happens Live was that Craig was a liar and he lied to him about this business venture that he was doing. Craig invested in Spritz Society. It's apparently a direct competitor of Loverboy. Apparently, I mean, I don't actually know that it is. It depends who you ask. Kyle's like, no, we're not a direct competitor, but he seems to be really upset about it, which to me says they might be like some sort of competitor. But essentially, Kyle also said that the founder of this company, Ben, took him out to dinner and milked him for information and, like stealing his business model and all these types of things. Claudia ripped this guy a new one and was like, you're lying. You knew about this. You knew that Craig had signed on with us. We give investors equity in our company. You expect people to just shell out Loverboy for free without giving them any sort of compensation. And she said, Craig also went to you and said, hey, look, I'm going to do this. If you will let me invest in Loverboy, I won't do it. And Kyle didn't want to do it because he didn't want to give any of his business away. So I don't know. I really want to know more about that. I don't know if it's going to get picked up anywhere else. But very interessante. Then we got the reunion trailer this week, and I wasn't necessarily blown away by it. I mean, I'm intrigued, don't get me wrong, because Summer House is firing on all cylinders. But it does kick off with Andy asking, who thinks Carl's afraid of Lindsay? And everyone raises their hand, including Carl. We get a little Danielle versus Paige moment, which we knew was going to happen. We get Sierra and West. It's kind of insinuating that there's too many temptations in the Bravo sphere. And, Sierra's crying, so I don't think that they're together. Amanda reveals that she was struggling with depression. And then, of course, Lindsay and Carl, more of the same. Carl saying he didn't plan on ending the relationship that day. Lindsay saying, Carl said he had to have the cameras there. Carl saying, I paid rent for 9 months. It's just the same. Lindsay seeing someone who has not seen the show. Do I know anything about Lindsay Hubbard's boyfriend? Yes. Have I met Lindsay's boyfriend? Also, yes. Patreon.com/Morgan's Pop Talks is going to be lit on Friday if you want to be there. All right. Anyhow, let's get into a really exciting interview that I have for you guys today. I told you last week about my favorite new show. It's Love Undercover. It's on Peacock. Basically what it is 5 superstar athlete soccer players from all around the world go to LA undercover to try to find true love. I guess they have a hard time dating when they're rich and famous and women just throw themselves at their feet. But, David and I really enjoy watching it because he knows all the soccer players and I love reality TV and the romantic connection of it all. It's completely out on Peacock right now if you haven't watched it, but all the episodes are out. So we are going to check back in with 3 of the biggest stars today, Ariana, Brittany, and Renee. So welcome them to MPT. All right, I am joined now with Ariana, Brittany, and Renee from Peacock's new show, Love Undercover. Ladies, welcome to MPT. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
I said I've never interviewed 3 people at once, so this is going to be really fun. Well, ladies, I first just want to say congratulations. My husband and I love the show. I want to go ahead and survey the room. I've done some digging on my own, and I think I know, but we're going to do a relationship roundup. Who's still together? Who is not? We'll start with Brittany.
We stayed really good friends throughout. I mean, the day after he dumped me, we were partying together. We were in Spain for a while. But we are just friends as of right now. So
partying after a breakup? How does that work?
Yeah. So we already had like the 10 days after the breakup planned. So that's kind of why the breakup was such a blindside.
I was supposed to come see you.
And so I was like, what the hell is happening? And then he was like, oh, well, like right after he broke up with me, called me. He's like, so are you still riding with me? And I was like, no. No, I'm not. I ended up seeing him later that night anyway, and I ended up partying like the whole night anyway.
So you guys are at least on good terms.
Yeah, we're cool.
Okay. What about you, Renee?
I was supposed to come meet Britt in Ibiza during that time. We are not friends. I just posted a TikTok that not me and Zeb, me and Zeb are cool. Me and Jamie are not friends. I just posted a TikTok that is the sound like we don't get along like Arsenal Tottenham, which Jamie used to play for Tottenham, and Arsenal's the biggest rival. So I think that says enough.
Why aren't you guys friends? Did something happen?
More than something, like many things. And these girls know everything. I think we can all vouch that it's pretty disgusting.
Was it anything that maybe during the season you saw as a red flag and you chose to ignore it? Or was it different things that kept coming up?
Watching back and watching his confessionals, that's definitely more of the real him rather than what he showed me to my face. There's a lot more, though. There's so much more. It's actually wild.
I've seen some people say online that they think Jamie was love bombing you. Do you agree with that take?
1,000%. I even noticed it in the show.
When do you realize that it wasn't what you thought it was?
After living with him and the way he handled our breakup and some things that came to surface, not even from his mouth, but from confirmed sources. I mean, he confirmed it on his own by his own behavior, but I was told many, many things that turned out to be true.
Because he kind of presented himself as, you know, a new person. All of those things that happened in his past didn't define who he was today, and he's ready to have a real, genuine relationship. So would you say that actually wasn't your experience when you were living with him?
It was my experience during filming and a little bit after. However, I think he should win Actor of the Year because that was an amazing performance.
I'm so intrigued by it. I mean, I know like I'm spending a lot of time here, but I'm just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. How long after he asked you to move in did you guys date, and when did you end things?
We stayed together and lived together for a few weeks, but you have to keep in mind that like I met his family, I met his kids, which was really inappropriate considering the plans he had, I guess, to not continue the relationship and what he had going on behind the scenes. I honestly just feel bad for his kids to be introduced to me as like a new girlfriend. Nobody knows this, but I met them on camera. But it just didn't make it into the cut. And I'm happy it didn't for their sake.
Yeah, that's a lot. I feel like we have a lot to dive in there, but I also want to get to you, Ariana. What is your relationship status with Lloyd?
I'm sorry, my story's not as great as Renee's. Like, that's really the real story.
Oh, mine's fantastic.
Yeah. So Lloyd and I are not together, but we're still great. There was nothing crazy I found out after. I did end up staying in London for a while, and then I came back to America, and things kind of just fizzled out with the long distance and both having our own full-time careers. So nothing really exciting there.
Did you like living in London?
I loved it. I was actually just doing the UK British accent challenge. Renee challenged me to it. So I was just like recording the TikTok, and I was like getting my British accent ready, and I was like, okay, which British accent should I do? But I loved
Yours
it.
is going to be nicer.
Okay, so also you guys, so you went into this not knowing that these guys were professional athletes. What show did you think you were going on? Like, what did they tell you when you were going through the casting process and when you got cast, Brittany? I see you shaking your head.
It's just funny because we all were told something different. So we all thought, you know, this was going to be a different show. None of us knew what to expect, I guess. I mean, for me, I was cast in a show that was basically I was going to be profiled matched to these international men, which for me, my type has always been international men. So I was like, this sounds great. 10 out of 10 men, quote unquote. So when we met them and they're construction workers and one doesn't have a job really, and one's like a professional or a personal trainer. I'm like, I mean, I guess that's a good job, but like 10 out of 10, I'm a little confused, but sure. And then they're going to be profile matched. So for me, I thought, definitely, you know, if you don't match with the first ones that they introduce you to, there's going to be more, whatever. They told me there was no drama, no catch. It was just basically an experiment to see if they could profile match people across the world.
Interesting. So you two, Ariana and Renee, you had different.
Yeah,
They told you different
Similar.
things?
I'll go first though, because Renee, I feel like you always have like the most interesting stories. So mine was like pretty basic. It was just successful men from overseas. So when I saw the men and like heard their jobs, I was like, okay, we just have like different ideas of like successful men from overseas. But I didn't really think anything of it. I like everyone's like, you had to have known, and I'm like, no, I kind of think it's what they told me it was gonna be. But
So Renee, what did they tell you?
Mine was similar to Brittany, where it was 5 guys, 5 girls. That's it. Men from overseas, super successful, like 10 out of 10 guys, top notch. And there would be no competition, no like girl on girl. You would spend time with them all one-on-one. And then whoever you matched with, you would end up traveling with. And for me personally, I was told the Prince of Spain was waiting for me. So I was like, sign me up.
That's funny. So when other women started to come in, that obviously kind of contradicts what they told you. So what were you thinking in those moments?
Well, Jamie would tell me every time new women were coming in. And since me and him clicked right away, I was like, no, I'm not worried.
What about you, Brittany?
I could hear girls in the hallway, so I was like, this isn't clicking if there's only 5 of us. And I didn't know we didn't even know we were the second group. Like when we went in, like when we were having to make our choices, like obviously it was a little difficult because there would be like, oh, there's a lot of women. And I'm like, there's 5 of us. I'm like, there's 5 men, 5 women. What do you mean? And so when we went into our first cocktail, I heard other women, and I was like, okay. And then when we went to the other cocktail party, I'm like, there's more women, and there's not other men coming. This seems unfair.
So Brittany and Renee, I mean, luckily for you, I know Brittany, you had to a little bit, but for the most part, your guys' relationships were pretty solid. Ariana, you were in a lot of love triangles with Lloyd. I mean, how did you navigate through that? And did it prepare you for, when you did find out, oh, he's a professional athlete and I'm going to have to deal with girls flirting with him all the time?
So the Lloyd situation was really interesting. It's funny when I watch back me asking him on a date, and I'm like watching and I'm like, oh crap, I thought I was the first girl to ask Lloyd on a date. Like I'm thinking like, oh, happy. I had no idea this was like his 100th date. So that was interesting. And then when we got to like our first party, like hearing how many girls had gone on dates with Lloyd, I'm like, okay, interesting. I see where this is going. So I mean, I wasn't like necessarily worried or anything, but it was kind of an awkward situation, especially when we moved in the house and we're like, Brittany and I are sitting there counting like, okay, how many girls are here for Lloyd? And like, it was a messy situation. But I mean, also I feel like dating nowadays in this generation, it's like, you're probably not the only one at first. So
True.
I was ready for it.
You were so nonchalant though. You were so cool about everything.
She's a chill girl.
And literally somebody came up to me yesterday and was like, you look like the girl from Love Undercover. And I was like, yeah, I am. Great show, right? She goes, I don't like that Ariana. She used Ryan to get into the house. I was like, what are you saying? I don't understand how Ariana is taking all this heat. Like, she is the sweetest. She was the most calm about everything. Like, I'm watching her thinking, I could never be that chill.
Are you taking heat, Ariana? I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, I've just stayed off social media because people hate me. Like it popped up on my phone yesterday, so I like read something and someone like went to defend me. They were like, I don't like Ariana, but and I'm like, geez, you couldn't even defend me without saying you don't like me. But yeah, no, people are not a fan of me.
I mean, I think I've won most hated on Peacock for the last 3 weeks, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. So.
Okay, Brittany, I wanted to ask you, how did it feel to see Seb say that you changed after finding out what he did for a living?
It seemed like he made that up with one of his 12 personalities, but that's just my personal thought. I was talking about like marriage and kids, which is what we were casted to potentially
right
for these people. So yeah, my head going into this is to find a partner. And when I started bringing that up, he's like, red flag, gold digger. I'm like, first of all, I stayed with you when I thought you didn't have a job. So at the end of the day, it was nice to hear that you did have one, but I was serious before I knew what you actually did. So it's funny to look back on it. I think that he needed a way to end it, and that was the easiest way out. And I mean, I've been an easy target since my day one. So
I also found that super interesting because, you know, like you said, that's the point of the show, right? You want to get into this genuine relationship. You're talking about moving to a different country. And when you bring up things like marriage, that's a red flag to you. It's like, no, this is what we were here to do. So it's the premise of the show. Find a genuine connection where you can see if someone can end up being your wife. So looking back on it, I want all of your opinions on each of your relationship. Do you actually think they were there for a genuine relationship? We can start with Renee because I know she's going to be feisty.
I think the proof is in the actions. He, again, actor of the freaking year. He convinced us all he was there for a genuine relationship. What you're seeing with us is very accurate to what I went through with him and our relationship. But again, the behind the scenes that I didn't see, and like I look back on him saying that when he looks at me, he sees his wife. Like, that was really amazing acting. I don't know how you fooled us all.
So I think that's a no. He was not genuine.
I think he might have had somebody waiting for him for when he got back.
Brittany, you're nodding your head.
yeah, I will say, like, I think in every one of these interviews, I've been asked, like, do you think that any of the girls weren't there for love? And I'm like, no, honestly, I think all the girls went there with genuine intentions to find somebody. That was the reason that we did the show. And then the only contrary to that is I think that the men weren't necessarily there for love, which is funny because that's what the whole premise of the show is. But that's just my personal opinion from what I've seen as soon as the show ended and, you know, what was going on, how we were in the show and how they were in the show. We were there to, like, we had our eyes basically on one person the whole time. The guys were like, oh, she's hot. Oh, I like this. Like, you know, and then afterwards to see where they all are now is kind of funny.
And I genuinely fell in love with an ad salesman. So, like, people keep calling us three the gold diggers, and I'm like, do you not realize? I've heard it, I've seen it, but I don't think she is at all. But they keep calling at least me and you the main gold diggers. And like we genuinely, like I genuinely moved to a village or was going to thinking this guy was an ad salesman with 3 kids. Like, I don't know how that's gold diggery at all.
What about you, Ariana? Do you feel like Lloyd was genuine? And do you think Lloyd had a hard time? I kind of laugh. Do you think Lloyd has a hard time expressing his emotions?
I'll answer the second question first. That's the easiest one. Yes, Lloyd has a hard time expressing his emotions. I don't necessarily know if any of the guys were there to truly find love. But I will say for Lloyd, I don't know if he was there to truly find love. If he was, I think some of the actions throughout the show would have been a little bit different. But I do think that once the show was ending and it was like time to actually form a relationship, he did a great job at that. But I don't know he was necessarily there to find love.
Ariana, what did you think about the whole Ryan situation? Following you on Instagram, asking about the details of your relationship with Lloyd. What did you think of that?
I want to have a reunion so bad, just so that can be the first question. Like, did this happen? Did this not happen? When Renée told me about it, I was kind of caught off guard because I was like, wait, Ryan, the one that I kind of ghosted? So I was a little caught off guard about that. But I was also telling Renée, this didn't make the cut, but I think that once we got to the other countries and we actually got to know these guys, it was completely different. So when that did happen, that was at the beginning of his relationship with Sophia. So at that point, I would assume their relationship wasn't super duper serious, but I think actually being there in their home country just like took your relationship to the next level. So if he did say that, I would not feel too crazy being Sophia, just because that was at the very beginning when she first got there. So I feel like their relationship hadn't got a chance to like actually become a real relationship at that point. Mm-hmm. But he did not follow me on Instagram. He did not hit me up. We just recently started following each other. So I don't know if he did or did not ask that, but he did not actually follow me.
Renée, I want to ask you, because, Jamie was worried about his past and what you would see when you would Google him. My question is, had you not Googled him at that point? Because I feel like that would have been the first thing that I would have done after finding out that he's a soccer player and we're moving on to the next stage of our relationship. What comes up in the Google search?
Okay, so I didn't have my phone for the 2 months, and
Oh, really?
we had
Okay.
the option to get it back, and I didn't want to because I was so in the moment, having the time of my life. When he told me what he needed to warn me about in that moment, I've said it before, like, I have false stories about me on the internet as well, and so I knew him for him at that point, and I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt and believe his word. And like, as long as his reputation was cleaned up, we're good to go, because I wouldn't want to be judged based off the past, especially on a false narrative.
When did you decide to go back home?
So we broke up and I stayed in London a bit, and I actually met up with Ariana and Lloyd. And Lloyd was actually an angel that day and like saw how distressed and sad I was and like filled me in on some more information, and like out of the kindness of his heart as a friend to me. And wow, another just like more and more stuff kept coming up. So I stayed in London for a bit, and Jacqueline came to visit me, and she was there with me through heartbreak. And so we just like had our time in London for a few weeks and went home.
Do any of you feel like, looking back, you could have worked better with a different guy? Or do you stand by choosing the guys that you did? I mean, especially Brittany, you coming in, like trying to get to know Marco a little bit, but really being interested in Seb. Do you like regret not giving Marco a fair chance?
I do want to say, like, just to clear this up, there was a lot of scenes that aren't shown. So I know that it looks like I just snapped my fingers and was like, Sebastian. But to be honest, Marco wasn't the only one that asked me in the house. I think that I would have gave Marco more of a chance had it been that we had more time together. But I think with Marco not having other dates and stuff, that he was pretty stuck on me, and I was like also I thought there was going to be multiple men, so I was like, I'm going to get to know everybody. Like, I was very, honest about that, and I don't know if I necessarily would have got to know any of the other guys. Like, I think they're all great, like friends with all of them kind of. And I don't know if I see a romantic connection with any of them. With Sebastian, I did have kind of an intimate connection, but that only lasts so long. So,
Ariana, what about you? Any regrets not maybe giving Ryan a little bit more of an opportunity?
I don't have any regrets. I feel like Ryan's a great guy. I just don't think he's great for me. We have like a lot of differences in life. So I think out of the guys, I'm glad I picked Lloyd, and I would stick with Lloyd if I did it again.
Okay, I want to end on a positive. I want to know from each of you something you learned about yourself through this process that will help you in your future relationships. Anyone can start.
I learned that I had no hope that there was somebody out there for me that has a similar personality, like big, loud, fun. And although this wasn't the right person and he had some shortcomings, like, it does exist. Also, it taught me a lot about sticking with my girlfriends. Like, it showed me how much that I value friendship over men and romantic connections, because men will probably screw you over in the end anyway. And to like take risks. Like, it was the time of my life.
What about you, Brittany?
I think I just overall learned to keep an open mind. I think that I jumped the gun a few times, like thinking I should just settle with Sebastian towards the end. Also, it's just, the way the filming worked. But I think for me, I naturally lean towards somebody that is toxic and trouble and a jackass. Like, that's my personality too. So I think now I keep a little bit more open mind, and maybe I would go for a nice guy one time. I don't know, but we'll see.
We all should have chose Marco. 11-girl party in the sky.
What about you, Ariana?
I think definitely taught me like don't settle, take risks. I remember sitting in my room, and this was after I talked to Ryan for the first time, and I was like, okay, Ryan's interesting, but I was sitting there, I was like, what do I want? Like, I know Ryan's the safe route, but Lloyd is like, I'm gonna be looking at Lloyd the whole time if I don't pick Lloyd, you know. And even though Lloyd had every girl, I'm so glad I did go for him, because at the end of the day, like, he's the one I wanted. So I'm glad I was just like, you know what, I don't care, I know what I want, and I went for it, because it ended up working out. So I'm glad I did it.
We love that. I have to say, you know, I can relate to you guys because my husband actually lived in London for 6 years. He's originally from South Africa, so I'm also into the international men. And I'll tell you guys, they're not all terrible. We just got to find you guys the right ones, and we can have them move here. You guys don't need to go there.
I don't want to live here. I was ready.
we were all down to move, and so I think that's the funniest part is we were like, get us out of here.
Yeah.
And then let's go. So,
well, I'll see if my husband has any friends still in London. I can hook you guys up.
Also, please, I was listening to your podcast, your most recent one. You were like, my husband's my biggest supporter. Like, he helps with everything. I was like, yes, I need that.
Yeah, you guys, we're going to manifest it because they're out there. They are, for sure.
I feel like reality TV isn't the best dating advice I would give people. So,
right. And maybe not professional athletes.
Yeah, we'll stay away from those.
I think we got a little unlucky with that one, because I'm like, okay, I was watching a show, you know, and they were like, oh, are you guys still together? Most of the couples were. And I was like, wait, but guys, we were dating professional athletes. Like, that's already hard enough. And like, yeah it wasn't a good combo.
The whole production thought that there was a proposal coming in. I was going to be pregnant within a year. So,
yikes. We're kind of glad that didn't happen, right?
I dodged.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you guys for taking some time. I love the show, and we're not going to be haters here. I love the three of you. I don't think any of you are gold diggers. So congratulations. And we're going to level up this year, and we're going to find you some good international men.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, thanks again for tuning in to another episode of MPT. If you have not done so, please leave a review, a little 5-star boop boop, a little love you like assist. Make sure you're subscribed to Patreon. Lots of tea going to be dropped this week on Bravo Friday. The link is in the show notes below. Don't forget, another pop-up episode is dropping on Monday, so I'll see you then. Love you like assist.